How do I even know where to focus when I'm trying to learn Spanish? How do I put together a study plan? What's the best way to learn grammar, and how do I not get overwhelmed? These are the questions from you that I am answering today. Hola mis amigos, bienvenidos a otro video. So today is part 2 of our Q&A. If you haven't seen the first part, feel free to check that out. I'll leave a link in the description box below. So today we are continuing with the questions that you guys have asked me in regards to learning Spanish. Many of these tips can be applied to any language, guys. So if you're new here, my name is Erica. Welcome. Here we're all about providing you with conversational Spanish lessons as well as language learning tips and tools. So let's get right into it. How do you create the plan for where to focus? I'm never sure I'm learning beneficial information. This is a beautiful question, and it is very important. You don't want to focus on everything at once or try to do all of the things at the same time. So this is the order that I suggest that you follow. Start with pronunciation and reading. Now, I know you're thinking, reading? Well, I'm most concerned with being able to understand and speak Spanish. I know, and that's why I want you speaking Spanish from day one, but I want you doing it correctly. So I put pronunciation and reading together because the two really go hand in hand. I spent a lot of time reading Spanish out loud, both in the beginning of my journey as well as, it's something that I still do. There's no reason to ever stop. And this is the number one thing that helped my pronunciation from the very beginning before I even had a chance to create bad habits. This is the reason that I want you to start with this. We can always learn more vocabulary. We can always improve our grammar. But it is hard to go back and fix pronunciation mistakes that we've been making for weeks and months and years. So start with pronunciation and reading. This is step 1. After that, I do want you to focus on comprehensible input. I'll be doing another video about what that means. But basically, you want to be inputting information. This can be reading, listening, really a combination of both of those is what I want you to do. And I want you to be inputting information that you understand at least 80% of. And you may say, but I'm a beginner, I don't understand anything. Start with really simple material. You can use graded readers that are specifically for beginners that start with a vocabulary list so that you can learn those vocabulary words. And then just with those vocabulary words, you may be able to understand really simple sentences. You can use children's books, audiobooks, if that's something that interests you. Personally, I have no problem with starting a language with children's books and shows that are just really simple to understand. Some people may not be engaged by that, so you need to do something that is interesting to you, because the most important thing is choosing something that you're going to stick with. But use this comprehensible input method. I speak about this pretty thoroughly in my Spanish Fluency Blueprint study method for what to do with the resources that you do find. So this is going to go a long way in helping you acquire vocabulary and gradually improving your comprehension and overall understanding of the language. Now you're going to ramp up your speaking. This is not where you're going to start speaking for the first time, because I am a firm believer in beginning to speak Spanish from the very beginning. But this is where you can really ramp up your speaking because you've acquired vocabulary. You've even acquired some sense of the structure of the language. Even without studying grammar, all of that input and your comparison between English and Spanish text will have naturally given you a sense of how the language is structured. So now you can start forming your own sentences. You can go beyond simply repeating what you're hearing or reading. You can start forming your own sentences, restructuring the sentences that you've already found and substituting certain words and phrases with other words and phrases that you know so that you begin to practice. During this process, you can begin writing at any point. So writing is not something that a lot of people put as their number one goal when they start learning Spanish. But the reason that I suggest this is that writing has been proven to help your memory, to help your understanding of a language. So while you're doing that practice of restructuring your sentences, write those down, at least some of them. You don't have to write down every single new word or phrase that you form, but write what you can down with pen and paper, not typing. Pen and paper. Doing that has additional benefits for the brain. Write that down. You could even begin journaling, writing very simple stories about your day, what happened to you, what you're going to do tomorrow. This is huge. Learning through stories is so powerful. And when you're writing and journaling about yourself, that is essentially using the power of stories, but putting yourself into it, which is a very, very beneficial combination for your memory. Finally, you can go deeper with grammar if you want to. By this point, you would have learned so much grammar, even though you may not realize it. You're going to have learned so much at this point. Now, if you want to go deeper, learning about all about the subjunctive mood and all about all of those things that schools typically start with, which is very backwards, then this is the point to do it. Why is this the point to do it? Because now you have a deeper understanding of the language. So when you learn about direct and indirect object pronouns, that is going to make sense to you now. You probably already have figured it out on your own, but an explanation can now be helpful because you've come across them in your reading, in your listening, and it's at this point that you can actually retain this information and benefit from it to the maximum degree. Our next question is, how can I put a Spanish sentence together with ease? Well, before it becomes easy, you just have to practice a lot. So do what we've already talked about. Take sentences that you see and restructure them. For example, if you see a sentence that says, Amelia se siente triste, Amelia feels sad. And you have also learned the word for excited, and you know that the word excited for a female is going to be emocionada. So you take that sentence and say your name is Julia. So you write a sentence that says, Julia se siente emocionada. So you've taken the exact same sentence, you're just substituting words in there to help your memory, and eventually that's going to become easy with a lot of practice. Our next question is, how do you learn grammar in Spanish? By reading or using other things? Well, didn't you just read my mind? Because yes, reading, in my opinion, is the #1 most beneficial way to acquire Spanish grammar. Other forms of input are helpful as well, of course, listening and taking in information in other ways. But when you're reading, you have a chance to pause, you have a chance to compare bilingual texts, look at the English, look at the Spanish, notice the things that are structured the same in both languages, notice how sentences are structured completely differently, and acquire grammar that way. Of course, you can also study grammar more formally, but as we've discussed, I really suggest doing that after you have some sort of grasp on the language so that you can more easily absorb that information. Finally, Carmen says, how do I not get overwhelmed? First of all, enjoy the process. Most of us are not in school anymore. We're not learning Spanish because someone's making us do it. We're learning Spanish for a reason that is important to us. So remember that. Remember that this is not a chore. This is something that is important to you and that you're willing to put in the work to accomplish because it's going to open up so many new doors for you. So set specific and measurable goals, as we've talked about before. Don't just make this general goal of I want to be fluent in a year, because we can't measure fluency in the short term. Be really specific, celebrate your wins, and also be really careful about how many resources you use. We live in a day and age where there is so much information out there that we can just get analysis paralysis and never take any action because we just don't know what program to use, what resources are the best. Or we can make the opposite mistake of purchasing every single course under the sun and wasting thousands of dollars because then we don't even do anything because we have no idea where to start. So analyze yourself, analyze your learning style. How do you enjoy learning other things in your own language? You will likely enjoy that same style of learning in Spanish. So choose your resources based on that. And if you are in a certain dedicated course or a program, try to see it out until the end, unless it really does stop working for you. In that case, don't feel bad about stopping it in the middle and experimenting. But if it's working for you, you, if you are really putting the time in and applying what you're learning, then try to see that out until the end. Try to be consistent. You don't have to do all the things. You don't have to do things just because someone else tells you that you should. Listen to yourself, learn your own style. The power of creating the perfect study plan lies within you. That's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much again for your questions. I'm sorry that I can't answer every single one, but I do get some of the same questions over and over again. So I hope that by answering some of these, perhaps your own questions have been answered. Again, if you want to leave me a question, feel free to do so here below or on any of my other social media platforms. I appreciate you guys so much. Thanks for being here with me. Don't forget to download Spanish Fluency Blueprints with a step-by-step self-study guide to get you started and to really discover your own learning style. Like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe and hit the notification bell, and we'll be seeing each other here very soon. Hasta la próxima, amigos. Ciao.